Hello YouTube and people of the interwebs, welcome back to another video. Today we're here to review Wild Blue Yonder, and I've brought along some cool special guests.
Hi, I'm Elize, and I was in the last video of these as well, so represent. Go watch that.
Hi, I'm Artie, and I wasn't in the last video, so represent.
Hi, I'm Tharries. I'm always here, so
We will very smoothly transition into talking about last night's episode of Doctor Who, Wild Blue Yonder. I have heard Mr. Thomas Harries's thoughts, but Elize and Artie, take the floor. I have no idea what you thought. What did you think?
I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was I think it was just a perfect average episode of Doctor Who. It wasn't like a finale. It wasn't like an anniversary special, but it was just a brilliant Monster of the Week episode.
I thought it was amazing. I had my jaw dropped for the entirety of it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I loved basically just David and Catherine. I adored it. I loved it quite a lot more than the Star Beast, which Joe, you didn't. I think Tharries did. So yeah, interested to hear.
I find it very interesting because I agree with what Artie said in that it was a very good average episode of Doctor Who, but I can't help but feel like when I left the episode, David Tennant and Catherine Tate are back for 3 hours. We have 3 hours with them, and that's it. And to use one of them on what it's not a filler episode, that sounds way too harsh because there was really good character stuff going on in there, but do you know what I mean? It felt like episode 9 of a 12 episode series rather than it feeling like, oh my god, this is a big bombastic 60th special which we've waited for months.
I think that David and Catherine only back for 3 episodes, and they took the time with one of the episodes to go and do something random where they are the only characters in it. I thought it was it's almost, I was saying this to my brother yesterday, I think it's like almost a better celebration than rather than doing a big bombastic episode, to just write the best normal episode of what the show usually is. Because as a Monster of the Week episode, I think it's really up there with some of the best.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I know people were sort of saying, oh, it doesn't really feel as celebratory. For me, I think I'm in your camp, Artie, of for me, all I want, is like an episode, and that was that, and I think it really showed Doctor Who at its peak. And I mean, I think the thing is, because this episode was so character focused and it was so to do with the Doctor and Donna, I feel like, because obviously people suggest the ideas of cameos and stuff, we'll get onto that in a bit, I feel like that would have sort of detracted from the core premise of the episode, because the core premise is the Doctor and Donna's dynamic and they're trying to figure out each other if they're real or not. And I think if you added in, if Matt Smith randomly was there as the entity thing, it wouldn't really add anything. You'd sort of be like, but did he need to be there? You know what I mean?
They shouldn't just throw random cameos in or like a special, I don't know, for the sake of it, because with things like the Star Beast, it had that sort of, obviously it's very different to the power of the Doctor, but it's that kind of thing. Go, oh, we're having a special, we're going to have this moment in it, we're going to do this, we're going to follow this thing, and it's all very oh, it's really cool to watch, but then I don't know, the story itself I'm not that invested in, whereas this story I was so invested in it, I wanted to watch more. I was scared watching Doctor Who for the first time since I was tiny. I loved it, whereas the Star Beast, it was oh, this is fun, but then it's not one that I'm going to rewatch loads of times in a couple of years, whereas this one I absolutely will.
I think that one of the best thing Russell's done outside of the show itself with the marketing and stuff is there's so much of a focus on the future of the show. Even though David's back and so is Catherine and the episodes are brilliant, all of the stuff on marketing is still shooty. And I think it would undermine that if you randomly got to see Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi or Jodie Whittaker, because then it would be be excited for the future, but oh, let's look at the past for a bit. But I think this is far more interesting because it's not bothering with reminding everyone of what they already know. It's just getting you excited. I mean, that Next Time trailer was, oh.
Love that Next Time trailer. Yeah. I think as well with I was going to say quickly, on Artie's point as well, something I really like about the way they've reincorporated the character development for that incarnation. I know some people were kind of worried initially when these specials were kind of announced, oh, we've had Tennant back so much before, he came back for the 50th. Is this going to feel different enough, big enough? And for me, it really does. I think, spoilers, by the way, but obviously, the scene where Flux is spoken about, I think we're absolutely sick. I was really worried when they said, because I think DT Magazine said they were going to bring up Flux at the time as well, and I think there was a worry that they were going to go too in-depth or be too confusing for audiences, but I really liked the way they handled it, and the character reason of, I destroyed half the universe, how can I forget that? I need to keep running. I loved that.
It's really interesting how, in my head, I think it's probably just because most media now is so sort of, it's all one big story. Most seasons are sort of, you've got Loki or all the Marvel shows. I was kind of expecting these 3 specials, and it's not the fault of the people that made them, but I was sort of, in my head, it was like, this is going to be a massive story about the return of the toy maker and why has he got this face back? And I thought it was really strange to suddenly, this is just serialized Doctor Who like it's always been. And I know they've said this episode it's not like anything we've ever done before, but I felt like it was kind of just, and don't get me wrong, Midnight's great. This episode was great, but it was kind of like Midnight with better extra steps. It was like, I don't know, it felt really strange to have a serialized story, but that's not the people that made its fault. That's just sort of my expectations of, I was expecting this big joint thing, when in reality it is 3 completely different episodes, which,
lead into the next one more than we think at the moment. Like, the whole thing about superstition is clearly to come back. I'd imagine that it's gonna be how the toy maker takes hold. So it feels like, because I mean, you've said Midnight, I got quite a flatline vibe from it, because obviously it's playing with form, it's playing with things that the mind doesn't understand. But I think that it's not going to be obviously a standalone episode. It'll be more how Turn Left leads into the series 4 finales, I think. So yes, it is a different story, but it is also kind of integral to those stories afterwards. So I'm hoping that that's what this is going to end up being. But I think that the Giggle will be another almost more like the Star Beast, big story, more cameos type of thing.
One thing I think you're right about though, Joe, is it does feel like there's not enough time left, because the good thing about having connected stories is you can drag it out, and Turn Left is brilliant, but then it's followed by 2 parts. And I was curious to ask, because I don't know, whether next week's episode is going to be longer, because it when we revisited London at the end of this one, it's already in chaos, and it feels like there's so much that needs to get done, and I'm just hoping it doesn't have the same fate of Star Beast, where it felt so rushed all the way through.
I think it is the same length, which is a bit of a shame.
I think it's a few minutes longer, I think, but not hugely. It's a few minutes difference, I think.
Which I think
longer.
It is. I don't know. Is it going to be a pacing issue when it comes to that? Because you've got the Star Beast, which moves at breakneck pace, almost too quick. Then you've got Wild Blue Yonder, which, in my opinion, went slightly too slow. And then you're going to go back to the Giggle, where it goes really, really quick.
I can't agree. I can't agree with that. I thought pacing was pretty much. I thought it was pretty much spot on.
It was so good. The pacing was perfect.
The only thing that I kind of, and I said this to you before, I still don't really get what the reasoning behind all of that was. Maybe it factors into next week. Maybe that's why chaos is happening, because time's been changed. I'm not sure, but because they hammered home that whole Mavity gravity multiple times in the gonna get a tail into something, and then it just it didn't. And I was like, oh, okay, is that just the new status quo now? Is it just called Mavity?
I don't know. I disagree with that, because one of my favourite things Doctor Who ever does, especially in Peter Davison era, is just go, this is a time traveller going through Earth's history. Oh no, he caused the Great Fire of London. Oh no, Adric's death is what led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. Just little clever time travel things. It's in Loki as well, when he's revealed to be, I can't remember the name of the guy, but that guy that stole a load of money and jumped out a plane. I absolutely love it when sci-fi and time travel does that. It's so, I thought, that was, if anything, one of my favourite parts of the episode. So we're very, very different on this.
It's not to say I disliked it. I was more so just thinking, what's the tie-in? What's the link with it? I think less so. I didn't like it conceptually. More so just where does it fit in? You know. But it was fine. I just thought if I could have cut that sequence and had a few more minutes with the Doctor and Donna talking, I probably would have, personally, if that was my call to make. But hey, you know, it was still fun enough.
I thought it's interesting as well because just quickly going back to how different, I feel like I'm so different opinion-wise to the rest of you, but with my housemates when we watched it, because we rewatch it, it's Doctor Who, you've got to. I genuinely not struggled, but rewatching it didn't grab me really at all until like the really intense bits. Whereas the Star Beast, I can't lie, I've watched it about 6 times now, and every time, yes, it goes very quickly, but it is like, oh my god, what's happening next? Oh my god, what's happening next? Whereas I feel like once you've watched Wild Blue Yonder, there's not that much rewatchability.
To be fair, though, rewatchability usually means could you go back to it after, at minimum, a month? It doesn't mean, okay, let's scroll it back to the beginning and start again. Like, Midnight is brilliant. Blink is brilliant. But if you watched it once and then you scroll back, you'd be like, well, yeah, he's getting in a carriage.
No,
yeah,
I don't know.
This
I think
about an hour ago.
Blink, I completely disagree with you on. Like, if I could rewatch that constantly, because I think it's the whole. It's not.
That's because you love the show.
No, but it's not. It's not a bad thing. But because this story was so simple, because effectively, like Russell said this himself, once you know that it's the Doctor and Donna running away from an evil Doctor and Donna, and then they escape, like that's sort of the whole story, which it works on first watch, but like last week you have
I disagree.
plot twist, plot twist, plot twist.
Be like, oh well, I know the Meep is evil, so why would I want to watch it again?
No,
Like,
because when you watch it, it's like, oh, this is where our narrative turns on its head, and
hang on, there were
this is nice.
No, there were more twists in this. There were more twists in this than there was in the Star Beast. I mean, like, yes, the opening 10 minutes I had issues with, but as soon as they get to the pilot room, like, they almost immediately like go different rate, and then you have the twist when there's the reveal of like they're talking to different people, and I just say the tension in that scene was just epic. Then you have the second time when they meet the other ones in the corridor. Also, I thought it was really fun, the little set piece for climbing up the wall and then it moved along. Like, there's loads of twists in this.
Because this is actually the simplest one of the lot. If you describe this episode, so they arrive on a station and meet, they arrive on a spaceship and they meet evil versions of themselves. That's it. That's it. There's nothing more. That's it. Do they win? Yes, they do. Of course they do. I mean, with the Star Beast, you could sort of say, oh, well, the Meep turns out to be evil, and actually that's about Donna. The other episodes are more complicated. This is so simple. That's why I kept it secret, but I wonder if that's had an unfortunate effect and made it disappointingly simple on its broadcast.
I think that episodes of Doctor Who, for me at least, I much prefer on Earth when you can see it happening, real stuff. I love the experimental ones like this one and like Midnight, for example, but I love them when they're a nice break in a big season. I feel like, as I keep saying, we have 3 hours with David and Catherine. Yes, it's lovely to do a character study of them, but also I kind of want to see the, like, whoa, Doctor Who running around really quick. And because the Star Beast felt a little bit rushed, it's almost like it would have been better to do one big story with David and Catherine rather than kind of like small episodes.
I get what you're saying. I think because you
agree with that.
I think you were talking about rewatchability, and I think what makes this rewatchable for me is the differences in David and Catherine's performance when they're I think someone said they're called like the not bodies or the not people or something like that. Oh, that's the Disney Plus subtitle for them.
the almost flesh, you might say.
Yeah, kind of. They were very similar to that. They were very similar. When that jaw effect happened, I was like, that's very that episode. But no, I think you noticed the differences. Like the moment I clocked on that Donna was off was the line where she said, "I did what you asked," with no elaboration or sass whatsoever.
As
That's
soon as
not
she
Donna.
walked in.
Yeah,
It was funny
that was great.
that managed to mimic David or the Doctor a lot more than it mimicked Donna. Like, like in the moment he walked in, I didn't guess that he was someone different until we went into Donna, and then I was like, hang on, that's not David in there. But it was, I don't know, it was really cool how she was just. I'd be interested to know what the reasoning was behind that, because he was much more.
I think if you, when I've rewatched it, you'll notice when David comes in, he walks really weirdly, and he doesn't just sit down, he like slopes all the way down. So I think it is there. It's just because he's in the background, you don't pick up on it as much. But yeah, if you give it a rewatch, David's acting really weirdly when he comes back into the room, which I thought was really nice.
Yeah, no, I really liked. I think just what carries this more than anything else is David and Catherine. The thing is, with a story like this, it wouldn't work quite as well if we didn't know these characters. But the fact that we know them so inside and out is what makes this story work. Like I said this, and I don't want to harp on it too much, but I can't imagine this story with 13 and the fam. Can you? Like, I would be able to tell the difference being possessed and being.
Still can't get over in the Ghost Monument. They get taken to an alien planet, and all Ryan does is go, "Oh, we're on an alien planet, Graham." Like, what?
Wait, just on the monument, I know it was just a tiny moment in the episode, but I loved the Doctor just imagining this timeline where the TARDIS lands, a civilization builds around it, and it's just like him just sort of reflecting on like the just like I just love that tiny bit. And also like on a metatextual level, it's almost like the staying power of Doctor, the TARDIS, this icon of the show. No matter how much time passes, 60 years even, it still stays as strong, if not stronger than ever.
He's one of those.
It was like exactly, but I'll forgive that. I'll allow it.
In terms of the villains of the episode, which are obviously just still David and Catherine, what did we think about that? Because at points I thought, why on earth is the lighting so bright? These would look a lot scarier if it was dark and a bit obscured. Because, I don't know, it felt a bit, sometimes a little bit too cartoony.
I was like, oh my God, I'm really scared. And he was like, it's so stupid. Like, it was a bit bonkers, but I still found it really scary. But I'm scared of everything, so that's not much.
I think it balances the tone really nicely, because you have the segments in the dark corridors, which were genuinely so freaky. And the real sets are quite dim. But, like, then you have all that goofy stuff in the long, bright corridor where they grow insanely huge. And I think it balances it nicely to make it a family show. Because I'd argue that we've done a lot of comparisons to Midnight. Midnight is not a great family episode. It's a bit too dark start to finish. Whereas this, it really balances it. It's goofy, but it is also freaky. And the body horror of like David's prosthetic hands were awesome.
My arms.
I love that they did that physically as well, because I watched the Unleashed thing. The arms were all practical, which I really like. I mean, the thing is, I know some people thought that like some of the CGI on the creatures was a little, or like the creature versions of David and Catherine was a bit off. But personally, I quite liked that it was quite Uncanny Valley-esque. I think that kind of added to a bit of the kind of, oh, this is like off. It's like you're looking at someone, but they're not quite right kind of thing. I liked that.
The only thing that I thought was off was the Snapchat filter faces as they were huge going down the corridor.
I thought that bit really looked like Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, in Volume 2, when the spaceship's going through the thing and like Rocket's eyes go all weird. But I really liked that.
Yeah.
Giving Doctor Who, like, I love it when it experiments with stuff. And I thought it still looked a bit ropey, and like the CGI corridor as well, it looked a little bit iffy at points. But I think it's a nice experiment, and I'm glad that they did it.
I was going to say as well, with the villains in particular, one of the things I absolutely loved, and I think this has made it like what makes these villains so cool is they prey on people thinking to kind of absorb more of their like personality, and that's the one thing the Doctor does constantly is think. Like, he's constantly having to think about his way out of a situation. So to put the Doctor in a situation where they're like, don't think, that was perfect foil. And I loved like how vulnerable it made the Doctor feel as well, because one of the things I also loved about this, you can tell I like this episode, is they took the Sonic and the TARDIS away. So that made the Doctor felt really vulnerable for the first time in a long time, which I really like, because he's basically up against a version of himself that's learning as fast as he is, pretty much. Really challenging the Doctor, which I really like. Especially
as the last episode, I mean, I think a lot of people felt, me included, that it got wrapped up incredibly easy. Like it was just Journey's End, press a few buttons and it's sorted, which was nice to see, like actually have to work out a solution. The working out of the solution, yeah, as you said, was really cool because he's up against himself and there's no sonic screwdriver to save him. But one thing, I think I just need a rewatch on it, but the when there's the four of them in the room and they found out who each other were, I was quite unsure on exactly how they did that, but I think that'll probably be solved with a rewatch. But another kind of complaint, not a complaint, that's too strong of a word, but the whole thing about the airlock door opening and closing, I thought from the beginning that was pretty self-explanatory, because I mean it's so Russell T Davies to be like, yes, the last person on the ship killed themselves and they chucked themselves into the abyss of space. Like, yeah, that's so right. Like, I thought that was pretty self-explanatory. So
I didn't pick up on it, so maybe I'm just dumb. I didn't pick up on that at all.
I agree. As soon as they said it, I was like, oh well, that was the pilot, wasn't it? And then when they did it as a reveal at the end, I was sort of like, yeah, it's kind of. But I did think the rest of the story, it felt quite Stephen Moffat. Like it was a very clever sort of, not necessarily timey-wimey, but that sort of like, oh, and the robot's there because of this, and it all clicks into place really nicely. And I love seeing David run around the set going like, whoa, I'm working it out, and all that. Like that was really, really nice.
Speaking of the wrap-up, was anyone else almost fooled by the fake Doctor death? Like, I was genuinely so in the back of my mind, I was like, she's definitely not going to die. But like in the episode itself, it was so tense when she got left behind.
Yeah.
And then like with the other Donna just slowly walking towards the TARDIS, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, I love the line of her where she was like, "You've got the wrong one," and she's genuinely like terrified at it. And you know, you get that shot of like the explosion starting to come towards her, and then the TARDIS material is just like perfect. I thought very kind of Fires of Pompeii-esque. I was getting kind of that, you know, when the last minute goes to save Caecilius type vibes as well. Yeah, also, shout outs to them using the TARDIS as a hoverboard. Thought that was great.
The skating!
Like the hoverboard thing where he was like, yeah, loved that. That was absolutely great. And I loved the way they used the Wild Blue Yonder song, because it was the TARDIS warning them of like danger. I thought that was a really like clever way of utilising that.
Also, can we just touch on the TARDIS ramp doing that to kick Donna out?
That was so great. Fun.
Also, I don't know whether I missed something, but why, other than episode title and it sounds cool, was the song being played? Like, you guys all just said you really liked it. I thought it was a bit weird. I was kind of like, well, they only included that to put it in the title because it's a cool title. What relevance did it have?
Well, what I assumed was, because it was a war song, it was the TARDIS basically warning them that you're entering some real. Yeah,
it's got a cloister bell for that. They don't need Spotify.
I mean, I suppose, yeah.
Maybe there's no cloisters in the new design.
No, but I think we do hear them, don't we? I swear we hear them.
I think
it was a joke. It was just a joke.
Yeah, well, we're Doctor Who fans, Artie. That doesn't really. Those things don't really.
I'm sorry, I even implied that the new design didn't have cloisters, and now we're using Spotify to communicate with the Doctor. I apologise.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't cancel me.
Oh, there'll be some angry 50-year-olds in the comments. There always are. Someone will be telling us the backstory of why the cloister bells are like needed for the TARDIS to fly, or some waffle from like a Big Finish story from the 90s.
Well, you just called Doctor Who lore waffle, so now the 50-year-olds are on your back.
Here's another little slight discussion point leading on from that, in terms of canon, how important do we think it is to Doctor Who? Because I'm always of the mindset that it doesn't particularly matter, and I like them playing around with it as long as it serves the story. But what's interesting here is Russell is simultaneously with his new era going, we're going to change like the canon of Davros, which I think obviously representation-wise, it makes sense why they do that. But then he's also very firmly sticking to things like the Timeless Child, when like I kind of expected him to not rewrite that, but yeah, how important is canon to Doctor Who?
I think with the, particularly as he said, with the Davros thing, it's about lens through which we view it. So he views the story as always being canon, well, most of the time, but like it's just how we view that story, like how he said about the black and white versus the in color. And I suppose that kind of makes up for the bad CGI, because that was just the lens that we saw it through in 2007 and all of that.
I think it's like what you said, Joe. I think it's case by case. I think if canon can enrich the story and changing the canon or doing stuff like that, like I think adding the whole thing of the flux being a really traumatic event for the Doctor, the fact that they wiped out half the universe and they're really kind of guilty about that, I think that really adds a new layer to Flux that wasn't really there before, because you don't really get that vibe in Flux. She sort of just goes, "Oh, I've saved the universe, bye," and then that's it. Whereas with this, it adds a new layer to it that wasn't previously there, which I really like. So I think it's just because of, like, it depends on circumstance. Like with the Davros thing, I think, like you said, I think I completely agree with what Elize was saying. It's like, it's the lens thing. Like the stories are canon. It's not like he's going, "Oh yeah, Davros looked different the whole time." It's just, this is how he is now, in the same way that like the stories were in black and white. Like, I don't know. I think it really depends on circumstance for me.
Like the perspective of the viewer in, that sounds very obvious, but what I mean is like, we now, because I mean they put it on iPlayer, this is a new era, we now are the 50-year-olds are like ranting about classic Who, where really the stuff that happened in the last 15 years shouldn't really massively need to affect the stuff in this brand new era of the show. And I think that, like, especially because the amount of viewers dropped off so severely, I think it would serve the show to only vaguely homage back to like the previous eras, like mentioning Flux and the Timeless Child. You know, all that really is saying is, "Oh, I've had a bad time of it," which is good, because then you satisfy people like us who won't stop paying attention and won't shut up about it. But also it just like gives this sort of vague history that can intrigue like new fans, but not like dogmatically require them to go back and watch everything.
One more, like
Yeah,
when we,
exactly.
I was just going to say, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Because also scale wise, it's very, very similar, because Flux obviously destroyed almost half the universe. But when we were watching Series 13, I didn't feel that. I was like, "Oh no, there's another Doctor Who disaster happening. However, will they solve this?" But when we heard of the Time War, it was like this massive sort of really, you know, the whole gravity of the situation. And then that
The
kind
Mavity of the situation.
that vibe in this episode, like the way they were talking about it, I was really reminded of how they were discussing the Time War at the start of season 2 more. Both.
I really like that. Speaks to Tennant's acting, and that maybe if someone else was playing the Doctor during Flux, it would have had more gravitas at the time, because he actually reacted to it. But I know this is not a hateful channel, and I would never hate on previous Doctor Who, but I do think it speaks to the previous era that automatically it's given far more gravitas in one mentioning than I ever felt it got at the time.
I loved how Russell's been back for 2 episodes, but he solved the 2 biggest problems I had with the Chibnall era already. One, we now know, don't worry, Dan Lewis isn't left to be homeless. UNIT have an insurance policy for alien incursions. And 2, don't worry, the universe wasn't magically saved in between episodes. The Flux did destroy half of everything, and everything's still all dead. It was nice work, Russell.
Yeah, that was great. I Also, I mean, I want to talk about this. Wilf, can we talk about Wilf?
Oh,
I was actually crying. Tears fell from my eyes.
I clapped. I was like, yeah, go on. There he is. Oh.
I literally let out like a whale. I was like,
yeah. No, I was so happy. I was so happy to see him. It's when Tennant says, "How are you, my old soldier?" I was like, "Oh, it's so nice." And then the sort of twist then of like the end sequence of like, "What about this Doctor? They've all gone underground. Everything's going wrong." And then there's like a flashing plane, and the music in that scene was very Years and Years. That's another thing I want to sort of highlight. The music in this episode I thought was great. I thought it was really, really good.
Amazing.
Yeah,
like
Murray Gold. I prefer him this time round to his original run, because I think sometimes his music in the OG ones gets a little bit like, turn it down, Murray, calm down. Like the dialogue speaking for itself. You don't need to go. Yeah, exactly. Whereas this time it's the same sort of themes, but it allows the actors to act more without the music having to shout over them going, "This is how you need to feel right now." Like I was slightly scared after the Children in Need special, because the music in that was whack. Like, what on earth was going on there? But the Star Beast in this, I think the music's been banging.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I was saying this to you, I think the other day, it feels like not only has Russell T Davies matured as a writer, but I also feel Murray Gold has equally matured. There's moments where it's subtler than it used to be. I mean, even in this episode, got those moments of like synth, which was very classic Who-esque, which I really liked. It's almost in a way like he sort of looked at what Sagan Akinola did and went, "I'm going to blend a bit of that in, you know, a bit of the sci-fi ambience."
I think as well, going back to Wilf quickly, that's such a nice final scene for him, because obviously, as Russell said, there's no more of Bernard Cribbins in the specials, which is...
No, Russell's that, but I like, in the back of my mind, I'm still hoping that they went and visited him in the home or something, because like, we need a goodbye.
I think
we need a goodbye for Bernard.
Yeah. What confuses me is, because I was after Russell said that, I was like, but surely not. We've seen Wilf in the Giggle. Like, even in the trailer, the top of Wilf's hat is there when the Doctor confronts the toy maker and Donna's there. But I've gone back and looked at the filming pictures. Bernard Cribbins wasn't there. They had to get a body double in for that day.
I mean, to be fair though, that final sequence where it explodes and he's wheeled into the TARDIS looks absolutely gorgeous, like visually. I think that looks fantastic. The directing, that's another thing I wanted to like just highlight in this like review, I thought was fantastic. Like the moments of tension were really good. Like there were like, it felt claustrophobic in like a really good way. And the character performance felt really intimate. It was really, I think the directing was fantastic. And I loved the shot of, you know, when they go all the way around the spaceship that they're on. That looks really cool when they're in the abyss of space. That's good.
Yeah, the choice of having the like stark white light from the drone like face on them as just discussing the nothingness of outer space was just like awesome. It was like, it was so exposing and just brilliant.
Yeah, I think the direction for this episode, yeah, you are right. It was, I don't know, it's one of my favourite in recent memory, but that's probably just because Chibnall would always go close up, closer, closer, closer. Like in this, we were actually allowed to sort of see everything properly, and I thought, yeah, it was really well directed. The ending, yeah, I know we keep going back to it, but I am just, what do we think? How are they going to incorporate Wilf into the next episode? Because they're obviously not going to go down the CGI route, because Russell knows better than that, I'd imagine. And Russell's like respectful about it. I wonder, how's that all going to play out? Because if his body double is in certain scenes that they filmed and are using, do you know what I mean? Like, do they just never show his face, or it's confusing.
Might just do a thing where they like, I don't know, like they drop him off screen or something. Is my assumption of how they're going to handle it, because I don't really know how else you can, if that's the only footage you got. You know what I mean? I guess you could like sort of show maybe the back of, maybe if like they're waving him off in unit, Kate Stewart's got and you see his chair going in or something.
And then the
like
doctor's just
that.
like, keep him safe.
Yeah, something like that. I think that's the only way you could really get around it, I feel, you know, like trying to get into safety when all this chaos is going on.
What I'm saying though is even in Unleashed, you know, they've released that preview clip for next week.
Yeah.
He's there. You can see the top of his hat.
Yeah.
So for that scene, I'm really intrigued as to what they're going to do. Because maybe they just show up really quick and the doctor goes like, Donna, back to the TARDIS. And then she leaves and he confronts the toy maker.
On first watch, I didn't notice in the back of that preview, the toy maker dancing in the background.
Yeah.
Did you guys spot him?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I literally can't wait.
I love the line as well, like, oh, it's my life and do what I want. It just sort of shows that the toy maker has made people even more irrational. I loved that. What he was doing.
He's going to turn Kate evil. I think he's going to turn Kate evil, guys.
It's back, the evil Kate theory.
On evil Kate still in the game, but watch how she says open fire and then it cuts to the doctor running away. I'm telling you.
Oh my god.
Also, Wilf second, the fact that this 90-year-old man in a wheelchair had wheeled himself out to that spot every single day and told his family to stay safe. I was sobbing. It was just so lovely because it's so Wilf.
It's like that scene in Stolen Earth where he's like, you get back inside your wheel. They always want the women. And he's got the baseball bat. He's ready to sort people out. Yeah, no, I thought as a final scene for Bernard, it was lovely. I mean, just the joy on his face, seeing the doctor again. Oh, what a way to end it.
Yeah,
like,
it's a lovely final scene. But yeah, other comments about the episode. Do we have any? Because then we can move into talking about next week and theories and such.
It was just good, wasn't it? It was just blooming good.
What would we rate it out of 10?
9.
I agree. 9. I agree with that.
I don't know. 8.
Fair enough. I'm gonna go with a solid 7. It was a good episode because 7's a decent rating. It was a very good episode.
What do you give the Star Beast?
8, I'd say, because I think the problem with the Star Beast is it gets much better on rewatch. When you rewatch the Star Beast, every time I've watched it, I've enjoyed it a lot more.
I don't know. I felt like every tiny little problem was more glaringly obvious.
Wait, see
for me,
the pacing issues, immediate turn of Meep, the just let it go, all of that is like still makes for a better episode than what was one of the most tense experiences I've had watching Doctor Who since Peter Capaldi was on screen.
I think, I don't know, maybe I've just got like trauma from the amount of classic Who I've watched, but there's always just something about episodes that are entirely set on space stations that just make me go like, oh. And don't get me wrong, this one was brilliant. I love Doctor Who on Earth. Like, the John Pertwee era, keep it like that. Don't actually, because it would ruin it, but just like Earth-based stories, I love so much. And seeing like other characters like pop in and have little emotional arcs and setting up like Shirley from Unit, all of that I found so much more. And like Beep as a villain, that was so fun. Like,
I suppose I can understand there's something so cinematic about real locations.
I feel kind of the reverse. I feel like New Who is so often confined to Earth. A lot, particularly during the first Dave era. I like the idea of going, you know, beyond the universe, kind of this edge of the universe, like, you know, these unknowable villains. Like the scale of it just felt so like grand and cosmic. I loved that. For me, I feel the complete reverse score of you, where you'd give this a 7 and Star Beast like an 8. I think I would give like Star Beast a 7. It's great, it's good. I'd give like Wild Blue Yonder like a 9. It just ramped everything up for me, and it had less like I think Artie was saying, less glaring. You know, not to say they were terrible, but there is things with the Star Beast, because it had to do so much to kind of address, like the meta crisis. Like, there's more things you can put up with that, with the whole, like you were saying, like the let it go thing, which I saw some people do frozen edits of, which was very good. But like with this, I didn't really feel like it was really much of anything that detracted, other than, like I said, didn't really get why Isaac Newton was there. But other than that, I can't really think of anything else. Like, you know, it was just pretty much spot on for me. I don't know.
With the Star Beast and stories like that as well, maybe it is just a bit of like the links. You could get a psychologist in here, but the links with like childhood and my love for Doctor Who, because there's something about Doctor Who for me is kind of at its peak when you've got the really clever like writing that adults can appreciate, that kids can also love, family oriented. You've got all of that. It's so nice. And then episodes of things like Torchwood, where it's really, really slow, really scary, really sad and disturbing at the end. I love that tone for other things, but I don't know, I like my Doctor Who full family appeal.
I think that the show is at its best when you have your lunchbox show, you have your tension show, and then Doctor Who does both. Like, that's Torchwood, I don't think would work as well without the balance of Sarah Jane. And like Doctor Who in the Davis era, it did do both. Like, you've got your Midnights and your Blinks and your Silence in the Libraries. Like, and then you've also got your ridiculous episodes with like Unicorn and the Wasp, I suppose, is more ridiculous, and Partners in Crime.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, Doctor Who should be allowed to do both.
No, but
I think the balance is what makes Doctor Who.
That's where episodes like, it's one of the reasons it's like my favourite, The Doctor Falls. I feel like you get all of those really nice character moments, along with, oh, look, Cybermen, and all that drama's happening. Like, it's a really nice blend of all that. And this episode, I think I'd have reacted a lot more positively to it if, as I said at the beginning, it was part of a bigger series. I just feel like its placement here is a bit strange.
I do want to say briefly, before we move on to like sort of next time talk, this did make me think. I never thought I would say this going into these specials, but I genuinely wish David was around for longer. Don't get me wrong, I'm excited for Shooty. I can't wait for Shooty. It's going to be great. But seeing the development of this character in particular, this version of that Doctor, I think it's been done so well. I kind of want to see more of it. I'm kind of sad that development of this version in particular. Obviously, I'm sure it'll feed into Shooty and stuff, but that version of the Doctor ends next week. I almost would have wanted like a 6-episode run, you know, to really like go into all this stuff, because I thought the stuff with like the Doctor as that Doctor reacting to things like the Flux was so interesting. And like the whole thing with the Doctor and Donna and how much time has passed, and does the meta crisis mean that she remembers things that have passed? All that's so interesting. I would have happily had a few more. But again, not to say I'm not excited for Shooty. I absolutely am.
I can't wait it. Episode. I literally can't wait. The photos look so cool.
Yeah, I think I do agree with the whole. It needed to be like 6 parts, because don't get me wrong, I am sad and I am scared. Like, oh no, the 14th Doctor's going to regenerate, but like, we've only seen him for 2 hours. It kind of feels like, well, it's to be expected, which is why I expected it to be one long story.
I think that we're definitely going to end up seeing David again, though. Like, he's almost definitely coming back for future specials and anniversaries, and they should always want to leave us wanting more. Because if they'd have gave us 6 episodes, maybe in 5 years when they bring him back as a cameo, would be like, they just always bring him back, like, for ages. And it like, whereas if they give us 3, everyone's like, blimey, those episodes were good. Like, we want more David. Oh, but Shooty's fantastic. It means that when David does come back, people will be less annoyed.
Yeah.
Final wrap-up thoughts on Wild Blue Yonder. Anyone got anything to say?
Outstanding. Never been done before, never will be done again. Blu-ray, I will worship at the feet of Wild Blue Yonder. I loved it.
Fair enough.
I don't want to be negative. I really don't want to be negative, because I did enjoy the episode, but when people say things like that, it makes me want to go, no.
It is so unusual. It is so unusual to come out of a Doctor Who episode and we go, that was amazing. I loved every second of that. And to go, was all right. Obviously we've known each other since the Chibnall age, and I felt so often it was the other way around. Like, oh, I really enjoyed that, and I was there like.
I think the thing is, it's a good episode, but I always get a bit like, I don't know, a bit annoyed when things, in my opinion, get overhyped, and like the reaction it's had online has really made me like, I'm not as negative as I sound about it. I did enjoy the episode. I think it's one of the best episodes we've had in the past 6 or 7 years. Like, it was really good, but I feel like the public's reaction, a lot of people like it a little bit too much.
I don't know. I feel like I have never in my living memory watched a Doctor Who episode and instantly been like, that's up there with maybe not my favourites, but like on the second tier of my favourites. Because even things like Series 10, looking back up, I love when I was watching Series 10, I was like, oh, it's not proper Doctor Who. It's not like how it used to be. But now it was back, I absolutely it on rewatch. But this one, from the first watch, I was like, I love it. And because I had that reaction, that kind of, oh, I really enjoy this episode. So it's kind of, it's amazing because I haven't enjoyed an episode like on first watch in so long.
Yeah, because even with Series 10, I have come to really like it with hindsight. But even at the time, I was sort of like, this is just sort of mid Doctor Who, really, isn't it? It's just sort of going through the motions. I think that might just be because like a lot of people were like, oh, can Moffat leave already? There was kind of that sentiment. How wrong we were in retrospect, David. No, I'm joking, of course. Sorry, Mr. Chibnall.
I don't know.
I agree with Elize completely. No, I've not like sat down and loved an episode that much so you can remember.
I find that really interesting. Because like Base Under Siege stories, I feel like Series 10, for example, has probably my favourite Base Under Siege story with Oxygen. Like that, it's so good. Wild Blue Yonder doesn't compare to Series 10. Nothing ever can. Series 10
I disagree with that. I know this isn't a Series 10 conversation, but I do think the blight of Series 10 is the Monk saga. Like, it just it brings the season to a screeching
saga,
halt.
like the mid saga, am I right?
Whoa!
Wow.
Wild Blue Yonder was better than most of Series 10.
I don't know. My Doctor Who opinions are so strange. Like, I never understand what. Like, I'm just gonna spit some bars here very quick. Tell me your thoughts, because you're all gonna disagree, I reckon. 3 of my favourite episodes of, like, not filler is the wrong word, but like this type of week by week story. Robots of Sherwood, The Caretaker, and Oxygen. And we'll throw in Smile as well. They're so good.
Smile, I don't mind.
They're so
but they're not
good.
Oxygen and Smile are yes.
The Caretaker.
Don't get me wrong.
What?
Also, I want to preface Gareth Roberts, dodgy man, says horrible things, but I do like The Caretaker as an episode.
I've never warmed to The Caretaker like at all, other than the one joke where he thinks Clara's dating someone that looks vaguely like Matt Smith. That's the one funny joke they have in that episode. The rest of it, it's just, oh no.
The Caretaker is so mid. You have the most cringe scene in all of Doctor Who. The most difficult scene in Doctor Who for me to watch is Clara pretending it's a play. It is so mid. The Scobox Blitzer looks plastic. It's I've never understood why you love The Caretaker so much. Oxygen and Smile, absolute bangers. Robots of Sherwood, you're overrating it. It's cheesy, but it is fun. The Caretaker, though.
Remember when this video is about the 60th specials?
Yeah, but what's more important? Defending a random episode from about 11 years ago?
I mean, listen. I get it, you know. Your Series 10 is my Series 5. I get it. I get it.
You have the worst choice out of all of us then, Tharries.
Series 5 is better than Series 10.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Absolutely
it is.
Not. Series 5.
Wait, hang on. Elize, what's your favourite series?
Between those two, it depends on. Oh, in general, I don't know. I don't know what my favourite. No.
I feel you do.
I think maybe I don't say it. I've got good favourites, but one of my favourite, that he's talking about is Series 6. But it's not my. I don't. I love season 4. I know I'll get hate for this one. I really, really love season 2. So I know that.
Season 2 has the nostalgia. Season 2 has the nostalgia.
Your reunion.
That's insane.
School reunion is an example of everything the caretaker should have been, but wasn't.
Yeah, it's true. I agree with that. I mean, the thing is, Series 2 is still like Russell's weakest one, but I still do enjoy it a lot. So it's fine.
I
And we'll just gloss over your season 6.
No, I've got to ask, what is it about season 6? That is a travesty of a season. What is it about season 6?
I love overarching plot lines. I'm not a massive fan of Monster of the Week, like, all of the time. Like, that's why I just don't get on with things Series 11, because it's just different every single one. I just don't. That's not the only reason I don't get on with season 11. It's like one of those ideas.
But I thought the Battle of Ranscott Kolos was your favourite episode.
They didn't slaughter it. I hate that episode so much. Me and Artie have been playing the name every single episode, and every time it's Ranscott Kolos, I like shout and scream.
Who was about to say, I prefer watching
I would rather watch the Battle of Ranscott Kolos than the absolute joke of an episode that is the wedding of River Song. River Song is so annoying.
That is true.
Amy,
River Song is terrible.
Amy is horrible. Amy is a horrible character. Like, Karen Gillan's great. She's really nice. Amy as a character is awful. Alex Kingston's lovely. River Song as a character is a mess. Series 6, Rory is boring in Series 6.
Right, okay.
Okay.
I want to play some defense though, right? None of Series 7 matches the Doctor's Wife, Girl Who Waited, the opener. They're all pretty good. Yeah, they're all great.
The best series opener to Doctor Who is The Impossible Planet.
No, it's not. It's the 11th hour. But The Impossible Astronaut and the other one are brilliant.
Opener to all of any Doctor Who season.
No, 11th
I like how this has just ended into us arguing over our favourite series.
Shall we go back to the 60s?
No, I despise. So I don't actually hate Series 6. I love all of Doctor Who. I can't lie. I'd watch most of Series 6 again. But I think the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People that's
the worst one.
It's so bad.
It's one of the best episodes in Doctor Who. It is fantastic. A Good Man Goes to War is brilliant.
Elize, I was trying to back you. I don't know whether I'd go that far. Like the acting, the performances, the gravitas.
Hang on,
all the
you say this, right? I don't know whether I'm just on my own planet here, not being funny. That bits where Tennant's going, Donna, 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 and Catherine Tate's going like, as a puddle. It wasn't great. I'm not being funny. You cannot say that's an Oscar-worthy performance. It was cringe.
It was good.
It was cringe.
No, but like, come on.
You're cringe.
You're picking the two examples where they're at their most wacky and weird.
Yeah, the two examples where it was cringe.
No, I'm not being funny though. I'm not being funny. That moment, and the Doctor literally was like, "Oh my gosh, you know everything I've been through. You understand. Missed you so much." Towards her, give her a hug, and she just melts.
No, I think there's the emotional stuff I have no problem with. Like when we thought Donna was about to die, Catherine Tate was perfect there, brilliant. David Tennant, brilliant. But when they're doing the really weird and wacky stuff, it just comes across as a little bit cringe. Like it's a little bit like, and that's not necessarily their fault. Maybe it's part of the script and stuff. I don't know. I thought the performances were really good for the moments where it was really emotional, but some of the other stuff, I think the performances were a bit like, that's a bit odd.
I know Elize did her wrap up. Can I do mine? Because it's related to this.
Yes, go on. Let's get the video back on track.
Yeah. I think the episode was a brilliant balance of tone and was the perfect family episode of the show, and there was something for everyone. I think it was curiously chosen as an anniversary special, but given that we got David and Catherine back, it was so nice to just spend an hour with them. So I do think it was a curious choice, but I really enjoyed the episode.
Just adding to that as well quickly, I was going to say, with one of my sort of annoyances with stories like, for example, The Power of the Doctor, is that you bring back Ace and Tegan, and because there's so much going on, you don't really get to learn where they're at as people. in stories like that. What I liked about this is that you've brought these characters back, and we actually get to analyze where they're at in life now. I mean, the way Donna reacts to being on a spaceship again, being like, "What if I never see my family again? What if what if they just forget about me?" Like, that was really interesting. I think one of my pet peeves with nostalgia is when they bring back characters as though no time has passed. As much as I enjoy Power of the Doctor, I didn't really feel like Ace had developed, really. She felt like she'd just come out of 1989, which to a certain degree is what you want. But I like with this, we're expanding and continuing them as characters, rather than, hey, look, I've got the jacket and I've got baseball bat. It's just like how you remember it.
I
like,
agree, but also I think that's why I keep having this problem with it being in the middle of the 60th, because next week we've got to introduce Mel to an entire new generation. We've got to then reintroduce Kate Stewart. We've then got more of like Ruth Madeley and stuff. Like, there's so much happening next week. I almost feel like Starbeast and the Giggle could be make it one big 3-part thing.
I have something about next week's episode.
Go for it.
Because we saw that David is regenerating. I know that the background's being replaced. But it looks like he's in the same place where Shooty said, "Will somebody tell me what the hell is going on here?" That's a strange thing for him to say at the end of an episode. And my brother floated the idea, and I don't want it to happen. Could there be a mid-episode regeneration?
If anyone's Russell's going to do it, but please, Russell, don't do it.
Yeah, please don't.
Here's the thing, like, what I found interesting about that is they seem to be still hiding wherever that scene takes place, even now, because the cloudy background is still being used for the David shot. So they're still going to hide wherever they are. I still think it's on, in the trailer, you see that helipad where Welch is like, "You're fighting with me!" And then, like, the toy maker's on the gun. I think it's there. But I don't know why you'd hide that necessarily. But who knows?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. And obviously, if the rumours about the regeneration are to be believed, which we will not go into, but next week's going to be fun.
Twitter. I knew this time you were really quiet. I was like, this is feeding into the discussion that you keep hiding from us because we don't want spoilers. So
yeah.
Well, now I'm actually terrified. Can we wrap up? Because I'm terrified now.
We can wrap up on the beautiful thought that in retrospect, when people watch this in a week's time, I think Twitter will be ablaze. I think, it's going to be interesting, and I can't wait to see what happens.
It'd be really funny if it didn't happen now. I think that we're kind of...
You're scaring me, Joe.
Like this.
Good. You should be scared.
Are we going to be happy?
Don't ask questions.
So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the Confused.
Hit the notification bell, etc. Go and subscribe to Tharries, Elize and Artie's YouTube channels and strap yourselves in,
watching,
because next week's going to be interesting. Bye! No!